Have you ever felt it? That sudden shift in the air, inside your own mind. 1 second, you're in control, focused, disciplined, the captain of your soul. The next, a switch flips. Reason goes dark, logic becomes a distant echo, and an ancient, hungry force takes the helm. It's a hijacking. Your body is no longer your own. Your thoughts are guided by a single instinct, a single image, a single need. It's the predator awakening inside you, and the whole world becomes a hunt. The project you were working on, irrelevant. The promise you made to yourself that morning, forgotten. Your higher purpose, your legacy, your goals, smoke on the wind. Only the impulse exists, and you give in, because the pressure is unbearable, and for a brief, fleeting moment, there's relief, a release, a burst of pleasure that feels like the most real thing in the world. But then, the silence that follows, the hollow echo in your chest, the fog of shame that descends on your mind, the energy that drains from your body, leaving you weaker, more tired, more empty than before. You look at the clock and realize you've lost an hour, 2 hours, an entire afternoon, a captive to a desire that promised everything and delivered nothing. And the most terrifying question surfaces in the quiet. Who was in command? This silent battle you fight isn't a weakness, it is the human condition in its rawest form. Within every man, there are 2 thrones, one for the king and one for the beast. The king is your consciousness, your discipline, your vision, your purpose. It's the part of you that wants to build a legacy, honor your word, and become the best version of yourself. He governs with logic, planning, and willpower. The beast. The beast is something else. It is your primal power, your sexual energy, your libido, your aggression, your hunger for life. It is not evil. In fact, it is the source of all your vitality. It is the fire that fuels the engine. Without the beast, there is no passion, no creativity, no drive to conquer. It is the force of life itself. The modern world makes 2 fatal errors with this beast. First, it teaches you to hate it, to feel shame about it, to lock it in a cage, in the basement of your mind, and pretend it doesn't exist. This is repression. And like a caged animal, this repressed energy doesn't disappear. It festers. It transforms into anxiety, unexplained anger, dark addictions, and a neurosis that eats away at your peace. The second error, and the most common one today, is even worse. The modern world teaches you to serve it. It tells you, follow your impulses, do what feels good, satisfy yourself now. And so, you hand over the crown and scepter to the beast. You let it sit on the throne. And when the beast rules, the kingdom collapses. Your life becomes a series of short-term pleasures and long-term regrets. Your attention is devoured by screens. Your energy is wasted on empty gratification. The king becomes a prisoner in his own castle. But what if there was a third way? What if the goal wasn't to kill the beast, or to serve it, but to tame it? What if the king could place a rein on this primal power and use it as his steed in the battle of life? Imagine that same energy, that same intensity that today drags you toward distraction, being channeled into your business, into your workouts, into your creativity, into your courage to speak in public, to lead, to build something that outlasts you. This transformation, this alchemy of the soul, is not a fantasy. It is a secret, known by the most powerful men in history. 2 of the greatest explorers of the human mind have mapped this territory. One of them, Napoleon Hill, studied 500 of the world's most successful men and discovered that they all, without exception, mastered this art. He called it sexual transmutation. The other, Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, delved into the depths of the human unconscious and discovered the exact mechanism by which civilization, art, and genius are built from this raw instinct. He called it sublimation. They used different names, but the fire was the same. The question that defines your destiny isn't whether you have this force within you. The only question that matters is, who is in command? In this video, we won't just talk about theories. We're going to hand you the reins. We'll show you how to transform the force that currently weakens you into the fuel that will make you unstoppable. The choice between being the captive or the king is yours, and it begins now. This journey of mastery, of transforming instinct into destiny, is the sole purpose of this channel. If this conversation resonates with your quest, consider subscribing, not as a favor, but as a contract with yourself, a symbol that, from today, you have chosen the path of the king. You've made the contract. The choice has been made. The king is moving toward the throne, and a sovereign's first task is to know his kingdom, especially its most volatile and powerful force. So, let's look directly at the beast, not with fear, not with shame, but with the curiosity of an engineer studying a nuclear engine. What exactly is this energy that can either build a legacy or tear a life down? The first thing you need to understand is, this force is not a sin. It's not a character flaw. It's not a weakness. It is pure energy. It is the fire of creation in its most concentrated form. It is the signature of life itself, pulsating within you. Think about it. At the most fundamental, biological level, sexual energy is the only mortal force capable of generating immortality. It is the impulse that ensures the survival of our species, an echo of millions of years of evolution etched into every cell of your body. This is why it is so overwhelming. It does not respond to social logic or your plans for next Tuesday. It responds to a much older, deeper call. The two great masters we mentioned, Hill and Freud, understood this perfectly, though through different lenses. To Napoleon Hill, the pragmatist, this energy was a tool. By observing the titans of industry, he didn't see weak asexual men. On the contrary, he wrote, men of the greatest achievements are men with highly developed sexual natures. He realized that the same passion, the same burning desire that can lead a man to ruin through lust, when redirected, becomes the fuel for relentless ambition. For Hill, sexual energy was the most powerful of all human desires, an engine that, if coupled with your vision, would give you an unfair advantage over the rest of the world. Sigmund Freud, the psychologist, went deeper. He gave this fundamental energy a name, libido. And here is the secret the modern world has forgotten. For Freud, libido wasn't just about the physical act. It was the energy of life. It was the psychic impulse behind everything we do. The desire to create art, to build businesses, to seek knowledge, to connect with other people. It was the driving force. Imagine your vital energy as the electricity running through your house. The physical sexual expression is just one of the light bulbs. But that same electricity can power your computer to work, the oven to cook a meal, the sound system to listen to music. The energy is the same, only the expression changes. And this isn't just poetry, it's biology. This force is intrinsically linked to your hormonal system. When this vital energy is high, pulsating, your body responds by producing more testosterone. And what does testosterone govern in a man? Focus, assertiveness, courage to take risks, a will to compete and win, confidence, all the attributes of the king. When you carelessly squander this energy, your hormonal levels drop, and with them, your ambition and willpower. You literally become a weaker version of yourself. To make this even clearer, let's use one final metaphor. Imagine this energy as the water in a giant dam. The average man, dominated by the beast, allows the water to constantly leak through small cracks. Every notification, every pornographic video, every instant gratification is a leak. At the end of the day, the dam is nearly empty, without enough pressure to generate any real power. The repressed man, who tries to kill the beast, seals the dam completely. He builds ever higher walls, pretending the water doesn't exist. But the rain keeps falling, the pressure builds, and one day, inevitably, the entire structure collapses catastrophically, resulting in emotional breakdowns, rage, and a loss of control. But the king, the master of himself, does neither. He looks at the immense pressure contained in the dam and, instead of fearing it, he admires it. And then, he builds turbines. He consciously opens controlled channels and directs this powerful force to spin the turbines of his mission, his purpose, his creativity. He transforms the potential energy of the still water into kinetic energy that lights up cities. This is transmutation. This is sublimation. It is the art of channeling the most primordial power in the universe, which resides within you, and using it to forge your destiny. The force is neutral. Fire is neither good nor bad. The only question is, will you be the furnace that contains and directs it, or the dry forest it consumes? Before we move on to the practical strategies for taming this fire, I have a question for you. For many men, there is a click moment, a turning point where we realize that this energy, when misdirected, comes at a real cost to our lives. It could have been an abandoned project, a lost relationship, or simply that chronic feeling of wasted potential. What was your awakening moment? When did you first realize that this primal force within you was a double-edged sword? Share that realization in the comments. It doesn't have to be a long story. Sometimes, a single sentence can hold a decade of wisdom. By sharing, you not only solidify your own understanding, but also help other men connect the dots in their own lives. This space is ours. Let's use it wisely. We've looked at our energy, and together, recognized its power. We've seen the truth of our own journey reflected in the comments. The dam, the leaks, the pressure. It's all real. The obvious question that echoes in every seeker's mind is, okay, now what? How do you stop the leaks? How do you relieve the pressure without destroying the dam? Before we hand you the tools, we need to understand the nature of the engineering. Before we practice the how, we need to delve into the what. What, fundamentally, separates the man who is destroyed by his inner fire from the one who uses it to light up the world? The answer lies in a crucial distinction, a principle that is the true foundation of all personal power. It's the difference between fighting a civil war and practicing internal alchemy. Think of the man who lives in a state of war with himself. He sees his primal force, his beast, as an enemy to be annihilated. He adopts suppression as his only tactic. His inner life is a battlefield. His discipline is fragile, built on fear and shame of his own impulses. He spends an immense amount of mental energy every day just to keep the enemy locked in the basement. He may even appear disciplined on the outside, but inside, he lives in a state of siege, tense, anxious, knowing that at any moment the gates could give way. And when they do, and they always do, it's not a simple failure, it's an annihilation, an overwhelming compulsion that leaves him in ruins, reinforcing the belief that he is weak and his enemy is strong. Now, imagine a different man, the alchemist. He is not at war. He is in his laboratory. He looks at the same primal force, the same beast, and doesn't see an enemy. He sees raw material. He sees lead. And he knows that, with the right process, lead can be transformed into gold. This is the essence of sublimation and transmutation. It's not a battle, it's a process of refinement. The alchemist doesn't hate the lead, he respects it. He knows that the lead contains the essential substance for the creation of gold. Likewise, he doesn't hate his sexual energy, his aggression, his passion. He respects them as the raw material of all greatness. He understands that the intensity which, when undirected, manifests as lust, is the same intensity that, when focused, manifests as genius. The energy that, without purpose, becomes destructive rage, is the same that, when channeled, becomes the courage to lead. This is the mechanism at its philosophical level. It's a radical change in perception. It's stopping seeing yourself as a jailer trying to contain a monster and starting to see yourself as a master craftsman before his forge. Is the forge's fire dangerous? Of course, it can burn everything around it. But without it, steel is never forged. The king's sword is never created. History is full of these alchemists. Michelangelo didn't fight his passionate, tormented nature. He took it, and, with it, painted the creation of Adam. Beethoven, isolated and furious with his deafness, didn't suppress his anguish. He transformed it into the Ninth Symphony. They didn't eliminate the lead from their souls. They transmuted it. The average man reacts to life. He is pushed and pulled by his internal impulses and external circumstances. He is an effect. The alchemist, on the other hand, creates. He takes the material he is given, both his light and his shadow, and deliberately uses it to build the reality he desires. He is a cause. Therefore, before we talk about the practical steps, this concept needs to be seared into your mind. The goal is not to get rid of your strength, but to become worthy of it. It's to stop the civil war and begin the great work, as the alchemists called it. This mental alchemy has a formula. This transformation follows a process. And now that we understand the difference between the lead and the gold, we are ready to light the forge and learn the steps of this sacred craft. Before we light the forge and I hand you the secrets of this craft, if this philosophy of inner alchemy, of transforming the lead of your nature into gold, is resonating with your quest, your like on this video is the quietest and most effective way to signal to us that we are on the right path. It's a simple gesture that tells us, keep going. That done, let's get to work. We understand the energy. We have unlocked the philosophy of alchemy. Now, we open the manual. What follows are not tips or hacks. This is the discipline. This is the craft. The great work of transforming the lead of your biology into the gold of your destiny. Treat these practices with the seriousness they deserve, for they are the true tools of the king. The first law of power engineering is that you cannot channel an energy you do not possess. A dry river does not turn turbines. Therefore, the non-negotiable initial step is to stop squandering your life force carelessly. This is what Napoleon Hill meant by transmutation and what many ancient traditions call retention. It is not necessarily about permanent celibacy, but rather about ending purposeless release. Think about it. Pornography and casual gratification are the biggest thieves of masculine ambition in the modern world. Each time you give in to them, you open a leak in your dam. You release cheap dopamine, which desensitizes your brain to the reward of hard work. You deplete your testosterone and prolactin levels, leaving a fog of lethargy and apathy. You give away your most sacred power in exchange for a pixelated empty pleasure. The alchemist understands that internal pressure is his greatest asset. It is this pressure that creates ambition, creative restlessness, the hunger for more. Without it, you become complacent and weak. Your immediate mission: begin a cheap dopamine fast. The goal is to rebuild your sensitivity and reaccumulate your energy. During this period, do not fight the impulses, just observe them. Journal how your mental clarity, physical energy, confidence, and willingness to act change. You are, for the first time, filling the reservoir. With the energy now building up, the intensity of the impulses will increase. The beast, feeling stronger, will test the bars of the cage more often. This is where you forge the king's main tool, the ability to choose. As we discussed, the mechanism of alchemy is to create a space between the stimulus and the response. This sacred pause is a muscle that needs to be trained daily. Your daily mission: transform your impulses into triggers for consciousness. First, when the impulse arises, the first action is to stop. Physically, do nothing. Take a deep breath 3 times. Feel the air entering and leaving. This calms the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, and activates the prefrontal cortex, the king. By practicing this with small impulses, you strengthen the muscle. When the big wave of a primal desire arrives, you will no longer be swept away by it. You will have the strength to stand firm on the board, ready to surf the wave instead of drowning in it. The accumulated, contained energy desperately needs a direction. If you don't give it a job, it will create one on its own end. It will usually be a job of destruction. This is the most important step of all. You need to build your turbines. Your turbine is your mission, your purpose, your project. Take a blank sheet of paper or open a new document. Write this question at the top. What am I building that is bigger and more important than my instant pleasure? Your answer to that question is your channel. It needs to be something concrete, challenging, and inspiring. If you don't have one, your energy will always be wasted. Choose one main area to be your master turbine for the next 90 days. It could be in the financial area, like building your business. Learn a high-value skill, coding, sales, design. Get a promotion at your job. It could be in the physical area, like training for a running race. Learn a fighting sport, and also in the creative, intellectual area like writing a book. Learn to play an instrument, become fluent in a new language. This channel becomes the sacred destination for all your transmuted energy. With the foundation, the tool, and the direction defined, it's time to integrate alchemy into your life. Transformation happens through rituals. The king governs through routine. Create a power morning ritual. The first hour of your day defines who is in command, the king or the beast. Before looking at any screen, before the reactive world can hijack you, you will consciously channel your energy accumulated overnight into your greater purpose. Get up, hydrate, and go straight to your project. If it's your business, work on it for 60 focused minutes. If it's your body, train with total intensity. If it's your mind, study or create. This daily ritual is you, the alchemist, entering your laboratory every morning and deliberately transforming lead into gold. It is the practice that, over time, builds empires, forges a body of steel, and creates an immortal legacy. Don't think for a second that this path you're starting on is new or untested. The peaks of human achievement are filled with men who, consciously or not, were masters of this sacred craft. They were the alchemists of the mind. Look at Nikola Tesla, a man who remained celibate for most of his adult life. He described his mind as a whirlwind of ideas and visions so intense he could barely sleep. Where did that superhuman mental energy come from? He didn't waste it. He accumulated it and channeled it through the turbine of his insatiable curiosity. The result? The invention of alternating current, the radio, the foundation of our entire modern world. He transformed the force that creates biological life into the force that powered the planet. Look at Michelangelo, a man known for his terrible, passionate, and intense nature. He wasn't a calm monk. He was a cauldron of frustration, passion, and divine fury. He didn't suppress that energy. He took it, raw and violent, and poured it onto marble and the ceilings of Rome. Every hammer blow on David, every brushstroke on the Sistine Chapel was an act of sublimation. He transformed his inner chaos into eternal beauty. Look at Ludwig van Beethoven. Imagine the agony, the rage, the frustration of one of history's greatest musical geniuses realizing he was going deaf. That internal pressure, that pain, would have destroyed a lesser man. But Beethoven took it. He channeled it into his music. The Fifth Symphony, with its famous Fate knocking at the door motif, isn't just a composition. It's the transmutation of fury into an immortal work of art. These men, and countless other leaders, inventors, artists, and empire builders, were not devoid of passion. On the contrary, they were defined by the immensity of their inner fire. The difference is that they refused to be consumed by it. They learned to build the forge, to take up the hammer, and to shape the fire to their will. Their genius wasn't the absence of the beast. It was the complete mastery of the king. This is the power you hold in your hands. This is the path of giants. At the beginning of this conversation, I asked if you ever felt held captive by a force that, while living inside you, seemed to have a will of its own. We have come a long way since then. We have mapped the energy, unraveled the philosophy of alchemy, and forged the practical tools for the craft of self-mastery. Now, in the silence that follows, the final truth emerges. The throne inside you was never occupied by the force. It was always empty, waiting for a worthy ruler. The beast never seized power. The king abdicated it. He abdicated it for distraction, for convenience, for following the path of least resistance that the modern world has paved with cheap pleasures and instant gratification. What this video offered you wasn't a magic formula, but a reminder. A reminder that the crown has always been within your reach. The power to transmute your pain into purpose, your desire into discipline, and your instinct into impact is not something you acquire. It is something you claim. The world out there won't applaud you for this choice. On the contrary, it will tempt you every day to abandon the glorious weight of the crown for the comfortable lightness of chains. It will offer you infinite distractions, so you forget your forge. It will tell you that discipline is a prison, when, in fact, it is the only key to true freedom. For true freedom is not the permission to satisfy every impulse. That is the definition of slavery. True freedom is the power to choose which impulse to serve. It is the strength to say no to a momentary pleasure in the name of a permanent glory. It is the ability to look at the inner beast, not with fear, but with the calm authority of its master, and say, "You work for me. We have a kingdom to build." This journey, that of the alchemist, that of the king, is the path less traveled. Often, it can feel like a lonely journey. You will feel like a stranger in a world that celebrates indulgence. You will see men wasting the same fire that you are learning to cultivate, and for a moment, you may even doubt the path. This is why the journey, while internal, doesn't have to be solitary. If what we've talked about today wasn't just information, but a recognition, if you felt an ancient call in your veins, an awakening of the sovereign that was sleeping inside you, then I officially invite you to become part of Neuro Alchemy. This is not just a channel, it is our laboratory. It is our forge. It is the community where we explore the neuroscience of high performance and the timeless wisdom of self-transformation. It is the place for men who refuse to live in shallowness and seek to become the true architects of their own lives. The union of mind and transformation is our craft. By subscribing, you are not just pressing a button, you are raising your hand and saying, "I am here, I am on this journey. I choose the path of the king." You join a legion of seekers who, like you, are committed to the great work. I want to thank you, not just for watching, but for dedicating your most precious asset, your focused attention, to this conversation. In a world of distractions, choosing to delve into knowledge like this is, in itself, an act of rebellion. It is already an act of mastery. What you will do with this map, with these tools, is entirely up to you. The fire is in your hands. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.